I cannot hear you. I cannot hear you, Ashley. Can you hear me? I cannot hear you. No, I cannot hear you at all. Um, Maybe it's the earphones. Can you try that?
One, two, one, two. I think hear me now. Can we're just experiencing countless issues with the internet and the sound here, but I'm just gonna wait for Dr. Tamuka to get back in. It seems he's also experiencing something, but I see that he's signing back. He says he's backstage. Let me just bring him in. Okay. Yes.
Hi, Ashley.
Welcome back. Welcome back. What a nightmare just to set up. But I believe you can hear me now.
I can hear you well, loud and clear, and it's so good to be here on your platform for Global Entrepreneurship Week. I have been watching as the week goes. I have been in the audience enjoying all the discussion around connection of Southern Africa, and I am just so happy that this is happening. Like, this is much needed. Kudos to you, Ashley. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. I truly appreciate the kind words that you are sharing with us now, and also the encouragement and knowing that the work that we're doing is actually being received and adding value. That is quite a great feedback to have. I'm just excited to have you today because of the topic that we're going to be unpacking, or the theme that we're going to be. But before we dive right into it, I'm just going to pull your speaker poster up so that we can just get to a bit before we dive right into all the good stuff and pack. So I'm just waiting, and then we can show everyone a little about who you are, where you come from, and read on the screen. But I'm sure those that are joining us, I am going to read from Fondo. So so Dr. Tamuka, you are a PhD holder, and also you are with better known your name rather, you're better known as Dr. Mook. Okay, I would love to know more about how that came about. And you are the hip hop biochemist. I checked out some of your videos where I just love the idea of you putting hip hop and biology together in one video. Like that's unheard of. And well done, kudos to you on
Indeed.
that one. Really, really good
No, you're
stuff.
totally right. I think the idea of connection of hip hop and biochemistry fits in exactly into the idea of STEM plus arts, right? We are trying to
Yes.
use our non academic curricular activities to fuel our academic interests and to motivate young scientists, young students to pursue STEM careers: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And then when you add that A for arts, you get STEAM. And that's why
Team.
my platform is Stimulators on every single social media platform, as well as stimulator.com. So, yeah.
Amazing stuff. I really love it, and I didn't know about Steam until I stumbled upon your platform because I thought it was actually STEM and that was it. But then the idea of actually adding art to it, I think for me personally as an artist, I would have never wanted to do anything to do with STEM alone without some art in it. So well done on that. Well done
And
on
that's a
that.
good point you're bringing up, Ashley. And in fact, it could be a discussion topic that we can start off in
Yes.
that artists themselves find that there is sometimes a difference between what they do and what STEM does. When really, in essence, we are all accessing the same brain pathways. We are all channeling the
Mhm.
same learning abilities and brain plasticity. And so, really, it should be connected. In fact, indeed, most universities, like here in America, they have the science department housed together with the arts department because they do go
Oh
hand in
wow.
hand. They
Yes.
good. They do go hand in hand, indeed. Yeah.
And I think it takes a lot of creativity to be able to be a very good artist. So separating the two, I don't actually understand why we were doing that in the first place, trying to separate the two.
Well, indeed, it is a new movement to combine the two. So, as
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
Ashley, I have been hosting a conference for the last, 6, 7 years. I started in
yeah.
2015. It's called Top Flight Art and Science Conference, TASK as an abbreviation. And it was actually hosted in Zimbabwe. The first one ever was in Zimbabwe, in Gweru. It
Wow,
was a
wow.
pretty small conference, but it grew bit by bit,
Yes,
year by
yes,
year. It
yes.
grew,
I
culminating
mean,
into
I'm a
last.
beneficiary, so I know for facts, I know for facts. I know
Yeah,
for facts. And
indeed.
thank you for opening up that platform as well.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying thank you so much for opening the platform for us to be able to express, and share the ideas that we have and have a place where others are listening and possibly coming up with new and innovative ways of achieving the goals that we have. So thank you for opening such platforms. This is exactly what we are here to do, to open these platforms and create a dialogue that can result into some form of positive impact,
In,
not just some form, but a lot of positive impact, in fact.
Indeed. And on that point, we should probably unpack Task a little bit for your viewers who might not be familiar with
Yes.
it. But
Yes.
so it started in 2015. We did another conference in 2017, which was much larger. About 300 people actually showed up in Gweru at Linkfield High School. It was 8 different schools from NAST, UZ to MSU, even Anderson College. So many different institutions showed up to present their science research posters. And then in 2019, I participated in an entrepreneurship competition here in America. This was at the University of Washington in Seattle, where I did a pitch, an idea pitch, basically, of how to basically get agriculture in Zimbabwe and in other southern countries to be on the same par as those in developing countries
Wow.
in light of climate change and how we are facing global warming. And I actually won, $10,000 in that competition, and I was inspired. I thought, oh my gosh. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I was inspired. I said, entrepreneurship is in our bones in Africa. All of us, we
Yes.
say hustling, we say kujingirisa in Zimbabwe, but like
Yes.
we're all
Yes.
entrepreneurs. And so I thought I would bring
At
this
the end
on
of it,
the
yes.
main stage of Task.
Congratulations on that. And what I really love about what you have done is that you didn't just go abroad and just become one of those forgotten diasporans. You actually still try to pull resources from that side and still give back and connect with us who are back in Africa. So I commend you on doing that, and please just continue to do that and continue to take all these initiatives to the next level. And the only way to do that is by continuing to do, although you definitely face a lot of challenges, which I wanted to actually get to. I wanted you to unpack maybe.
Oh, Ashley, I think it cut out for a second. Can you hear me? Okay, you might not hear me, but I while you're reconnecting, actually, I'm just going to address your question. Yeah. So, in terms of connection, and staying connected with my roots, or people at home. There was no other option for me. Like, as a Zimbabwean, as an African living abroad, you always yearn for that connection at home. And so for me, this wasn't really as much of a, even though it was all voluntary, it was all using my stipend money to sponsor these conferences. It was also feeding my heart, feeding my passion, because I was able to connect with my people, know what is on the ground where I came from, and bring what I'm learning here. And so joining the connection of multiple cultures is something that is really passionate to me, because even though I left, my people in Zimbabwe, I found other people here that became my people as well. And when you talk about Pan-Africanism or connection of the Black diaspora, you cannot leave out Black America. You cannot leave out Pan Africa. You cannot leave out Black Europe, Black China. And so, honestly, the idea of connection is really awesome. And I love that you are taking the mantle on that. Connect Southern Africa is such a great platform. Why wouldn't we connect? Why wouldn't we pool our resources for the betterment of people within our circles, and for building generational wealth? Why wouldn't we do that?
Yes. Why wouldn't we? That's the big question, the $1,000,000 question. And I love that more and more of us are becoming awakened to this, and we actually taking steps to ensure that whatever ideas we have are coming into fruition. And I will speak on even the reception of the programs that we are putting out has been quite overwhelming, which just shows how hungry our people, our communities, our networks are for the services and the programs that we are putting out. So now I wanted to move on to inclusion itself as just one of the themes of the Global Entrepreneurship Week. And the Global Entrepreneurship Week looks at inclusion in the sense of how easy is it for anyone anywhere to get included in entrepreneurial activities. What are the challenges that you have seen many STEAM, should I say, students and participants face? What are the challenges that they face within the space, the STEAM space, in terms of creating businesses and growing them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And, Ashley, I know you have my bio in the background, but maybe you could blow up the screen so we can see both of each other.
Yes.
But no, that's a great question. It leads me, to talk about the challenges that I faced in particular last year's competition, which was Task, Top Flight Arts and Science Conference 2020, which is geared towards stimulating entrepreneurship and innovation in Zimbabwe around Zim COVID solutions. And so one thing that we started seeing was a lot of students, and I call them stimulators, right? A lot of students had a challenge combining combining this idea of art plus STEM. Being inclusive of the arts in the STEM is difficult for scientists, and then being inclusive of STEM in the arts is difficult for artists. And so I have been on that intersection for a long time. I think of myself as a stimulator, like by my DNA. I am on Twitter, tweeting pop culture memes. I am listening to Zim local artists as well as hip hop artists. I use a lot of that to fuel my actual STEM education when I'm writing equations, when I'm coding, and discovering new de novo biomedical applications, as well as biomolecules. I am channeling those two things, and I'm going back and forth. So for me, it's never been a struggle. What's the struggle is trying to get other people to see that we are actually quite similar, and that if we actually channel the two and are inclusive of each other, we are able to achieve way more.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
Ashley.
totally agree with that. And I think the problem really begins within the education sector. When I look at it, you can hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead. Yes, I can hear you now.
I was thinking of when I was in high school, and we go to Form 4, which is maybe in some countries grade 9, around there, and yeah, great. And the biggest challenge that I faced was there was this literal distinction between art students, science students, and commercial students. But when you actually grow and you become an entrepreneur, you realize how much you need all three in one go. If whether you become a doctor and you are running your own clinic, you're going to need commercial skills to be able to run that business. And your art side is going to come through when you need to come up with solutions. Because what I feel about art is it's so problem solving. So you see a problem and you come up with a creative solution to that. You are actually being artistic when you do that, and you need the facts and the figures to know what you're doing. The recipe, you need to know if I come up with this, and science element of it. It should never have been rated, because all those play a part when you want to become a entrepreneur or business person. Great what you're doing, trying to bring the two. I would really encourage you to share with us so that we can also spread the word to our emails, to our groups, and more people stimulating more people to and
Indeed.
so in terms of your challenges, not challenges, rather your campaigns with the stimulator, what is the end goal for you? What is it that you want to see happen when you see it happen, and then you're like, wow, we have made it as a stimulator?
Yeah, this is an ever-changing field. It's an ever-changing arena. I think, as you mentioned, businesses and medicine fields and even law fields and a lot of the artist fields are becoming more and more interdisciplinary. Things are melding together and blending together in a way that benefits everything. So, in terms of what I would in the future potentially see as a rival, like, okay, I can hear you loud and clear, Ashley, and I think our viewers can see you loud and clear. I think maybe your connection on that side is a little
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can see you and hear you. Can you hear us? Can you hear me? Okay, great. All right, yeah. So I was saying, in terms of a future that I would see as in answering your question, is that if we are able to get to a time where those three distinct categories that you were talking about, science, arts, and commercials, are no longer distinct, and it's really a blend of the three, and it's really how you use your brain. There used to be a lot of talk about left brain and right brain, and how one side of the brain is really adapt to arts, while the other side is more adapt to sciences. That's nonsense, and we now know that that's nonsense. You bring your full self to everything that you
just fine. I never had any issues.
And so you bring your full self to everything that you do. I think there's a delay. So and so yeah, indeed. And so you bring your full self is something that we have now discovered. And when we talk about your full self, we mean not just your identity, not just your skill set, but really how you think as a person, your personality that is needed. For a long time, people thought, people who are extroverts or people who are really good at socializing would not be good in sciences, mostly because all you saw in sciences were stereotypical scientists, right? Which is the Urkels, the Steve Urkels and whatnot. And it's like, that's not the only lane that's there. There are multiple lanes, and vice versa. Artists who are channeling multiple areas can be scientists as well. Yeah.
yes, yes,
Yeah. So in terms of a vision that I see, I am hopeful for a time when stimulating is not only about fueling sciences, where the predominant four letters in STEAM are not just about sciences, but we also explode arts into its various capacities. And now it's all just one idea and a one way to educate. And I want that to motivate entrepreneurship,
yes, yes,
innovation,
yes,
and really bringing our African countries up and bringing the Black diaspora into a place
yes, yes, yes.
of success.
We, we
That's
shouldn't have
really
to
what I
choose
hope for.
one or the other.
I agree with you. We should not have to choose one or the other. Indeed.
I think there's a delay.
Go ahead.
Wow,
Yeah, I
that is
cannot
great.
hear you. Oh, now I can.
Yeah,
Now I can. Go ahead.
yeah. I agree with you. I cannot hear you now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, just go ahead because I think there is a delay. So just go ahead and
Can you hear
talk.
me
And
now?
then when you
I
pause,
think
I will talk.
there's a delay. Same here. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And I have to hear that, core of the work that you really, really a positive in within the space that you're working in Africa. Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Doc. So yeah, to continue our that I appreciate the core of the work that you are doing. That at the core of what you want to achieve is us as Africans grow, us as Africans succeed within the space that we operate in, whether that is within the arts, within the sciences, or within um, the commercial side of things. I think just of inclusion, it wouldn't be fair for us to have a conversation on speaking, mainly because they have been disadvantaged in the past. They have not had as many opportunities to create and build with successful business. So, what's your take on how the entrepreneurial space can encourage more women to get involved in entrepreneurship? Team
Yeah, no, that's a great
also.
question. That's a really great question, and it's something that I've actively been thinking about because when you think of inclusion in terms of identity, right? When you think of the top, let's say 100 CEOs of the top, Fortune 500 companies, they all, it's a stereotypical pattern. It's cis straight white men are ruling the world, and that's just a fact, and it's based on a historical fact, right? It's because of the historical injustices that have happened in many different parts of the globe. I'm talking between slavery here in America, colonization in Africa, indeed apartheid in South Africa. These remnants of these historical events still exist and they still affect us today, particularly for Black marginalized people who are living abroad, or even those in African continent are still struggling with their economies to match and be
Yes,
on par with those
yes,
of the European nations from which
yes,
those policies stem
yes,
from.
yes,
But in the same aspect as where we talk about white privilege from that lens, we need to also talk about male privilege. You and I, Ashley, benefit from male privilege of walking on this earth and our voices being treated as equal, as more equal or more greater than those of our female counterparts. And indeed, this is something you see in STEM. in STEM and in sciences in general, there is now a movement for women in STEM to increase because indeed women are a lower number than they should be in STEM. Women make up 50% of our overall global population. If we are 7 billion people on this earth, there are 3.5 billion women, and we should see that represented in all aspects of our society, or at least to a point where that makes sense. Women in science do not nearly approach 50%. It's nowhere near that. And that is insane. That is crazy. So it's something that I have wanted to look into personally because now when that intersection collides, so when we're talking about women who suffer from oppression based on male chauvinism and male sexism, and then you combine that with black people who suffer oppression based on the historical marginalizations of people of color,
Wow.
combine those two, that means black women are really getting it on every single angle. And it is our duty as black male, as well as people who are in the spaces and chartering and trailblazing in the spaces, to identify that and uplift them in any way we can. It's something that I've definitely taken as a platform on my end.
Yo,
And I've seen it's something that you have done as well. Because even during this entrepreneurship week, I've seen you have tapped women who are in entrepreneurship roles and are leading the charge of starting businesses,
I think
and you
I'm
have had
losing
them come
you.
on
I
this
cannot
platform and speak. So
hear
kudos to
you
you
right
for
now.
sure.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
As
I
you
can hear
wait,
you. Go ahead.
can say wait before this moment. Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for that contribution, Dr. Tamuka, about women and what we're also doing. Thank you. I think my last question will then touch on youth. So we have looked at all the different aspects of inclusion. We looked at, the inclusion of art within field and the inclusion of sciences within the art field. We looked at the inclusion of women within business. We looked at the inclusion of black people within business as well. And one last area that I wanted us to cover before we are done with the interview is the youth. When we also look to entrepreneurship in business, and that it's mostly the elderly that are successful within it. So there is an element of experience there, but we also have young people that have really achieved a lot at a very young entrepreneurship. Those are just so small. So what would be your advice to young people in terms of them getting more involved within the entrepreneurial space? What's your advice to the elderly in terms of having some youth partnerships, young people to help succeed and learn from the mistakes that they already made?
Yeah, indeed, that's also another great question. It's something that a lot of us have been wringing our hands and and brains to try and accomplish. Because yes, we have talked about inclusion of arts into STEAM, so into STEM, so that it becomes STEAM. We've talked about inclusion in gender roles, women being included in different parts of STEAM as well as in entrepreneurship roles, and we have now talked about age. ageism is a big thing, and it goes, it's not one direction, it's in both directions, where youth seem to think they're now taking over, so they want to sort of, say, hey, old guys, step aside, and that's not okay. In the same way that the people who are more, experienced and have, are more advanced in years, are looking at the youth and saying, hey, I am in this area, this is my territory, there's no room for you. That is also not okay. And there seems to needs to be a dialogue that goes back and forth between the multiple generations and have an honest conversation. There's this whole thing about Gen Z is more TikTok generation versus the boomers versus the millennials versus, everyone else. And I think it doesn't have to be a versus conversation. There are things we can learn from all of each other. And indeed, this is something that I have seen with the mentors that have been in my life, whether it's been mentors in scientific mentors who have helped me along my journey as an individual, as a scientist, as an entrepreneur, people who I have tapped and been my red team. These usually are people from all walks of life and are all along that spectrum, and really getting that wisdom, that sage, experienced wisdom, only benefits you as a person, And so it's something that definitely now I want to reflect back as a mentor when I see my mentees, and I consider you actually my mentee, when I see people like you striving and achieving in your field and dominating that field, I have nothing but joy in my heart. I feel so elated that, in fact, the work is being carried on, the torch has been passed, and it's being lit ablaze in a whole new arena. And indeed, I mean, this is one additional area of inclusion, this age inclusion, but there are many areas that we should start talking about, accommodating people who are differently abled, as well as people with disabilities, also accommodating the LGBTQ community in all of these areas, accommodating people of different religious backgrounds and even those who are not religious. There are many different ways of inclusion that we should start talking and having conversations around. But I think this was a really great start, really good beginning to this conversation. And I think it's been a really quite fruitful conversation. So thank you for having me on here. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming through and making the time to come and unpack with us.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. This was awesome. Thank you for hosting this, and keep going, Ashley. Keep going.
I think there was a delay. Just give me a second, and then I'll close off our interview once I've heard what you said last. Okay. Can you hear me? I'm not sure if. Okay. Express our gratitude, Southern Africa, making the time out to be with us. And I know that I have been calling you at 4, 5 o'clock to have you and have everything to you soon. We love to always have from the Connect Southern Africa. That was Dr. Tamuka, who in California in the US, working in as one of the global teams within the Global Entrepreneurship Week, and to actually see them so within the campaign that just anywhere in the world. So the Global Entrepreneurship Week has got education, 3 ecosystems. The 4th one should be policy, it should be inclusion, which Doc was here to unpack. Inclusion really means to him, and since he is within the space of getting more people included within the science and arts space through his organization Simulators, which he uses to also host the Task Conference, which we were a beneficiary of. We were part of that conference, and it was fun for us to do that last year. We're hoping to get involved this year as well. But this has been fun. My name is Ashley Mupfawa, and I'm the founder and executive director at Connect Southern Africa. You can email me at business@ashleymupfawa or visit my website at www.ashleypower.com. I've had fun interviewing Dr. Tamuka here, and I'm looking forward to doing more of these live interviews within this week. So tomorrow we are going to be having Mr. Sizwe Mabena, who is going to be speaking on entrepreneurship education. I'm excited to have that interview with him tomorrow, and I'm hoping that you are going to make a date with me and we'll do the most together. For now, it is bye-bye.